I was 13 years old when I first started self-harming. My mum didn't know for quite a bit. I think one of the main reasons I started doing it was because I wanted people to know that I was going through something without having to directly tell them.
I think that it's been quite scary throughout my life. I've lost friends. I've been suicidal myself. I've been quite afraid.
Every single youth that I work with has some degree of concern for their mental health. It's always a conversation that I'm having with every single young person that I work with.
Mental health is real. It's just not a Western problem, and we want people to be more aware of it.
The scariest thing is that following trends of anxiety and depression is like a mainstream thing for everyday life, and people are going crazy with anxiety.
Since young age, I was dealing with anxiety and feeling like I was not good enough, that I was in some way sick. Like, it's awful to say that, but that's how I felt. And then there was also, I think that that anxiety was, I cannot talk about that, sorry.
It's a constant concern of parents and of support members inside of their circles. It's really an epidemic at this point.
This is not a news story. 60 years ago, US President John F. Kennedy said mental illness is the most critical health problems, occurring more frequently, affecting more people, requiring more prolonged treatment, and also causing more suffering by the families of those afflicted than any single condition.
Nothing's changed, has it?
Well, I was struck by that quote, how, on the ball it was, and how they started to do something, but it just completely disintegrated in the US, and it's happened, the same patterns happened everywhere. Youth mental health was not a thing 20 years ago. It is now a thing around the world, and the crisis is understood. We've got something like 40% of young people diagnosable in a given year. Cumulatively, it's almost every family with adolescent kids. The mental health of young people is heading south. It's not just self-report measures of distress, it's sort of very carefully done studies measuring the incidence and prevalence of mental disorders in this age group, teenagers and young adults. We've seen data from all of the high-income countries, the US, Canada, Denmark, Australia, and it's all painting the same picture, a very significant slide in mental health. This age group, this transition from puberty to mid-20s, has always been the main period in life when mental illness emerges, but we've seen a big jump in the level of it. Suicide attempts have just gone through the roof over the last 20 years. And obviously when you get that volume of attempts, you're going to get a number of actual deaths. That's going up too, especially in young women. And we've been responding to it, but we have to redouble our efforts, really. Niall, even in primary school, did have some problems. He was bullied, didn't really fit in. He looked like an athlete and a sportsman, but he wasn't interested in that. He was interested in art and music. He was a bit of like a square peg in a round hole there. At one point, he was in a really sort of dark place. He became very desperate, and he took an overdose of one of the prescribed medications, and they found him unconscious. He spent a week in intensive care. So he was very close to death. We were incredibly close to to losing him.
We just thought it was severe anxiety. You contemplate like, oh no, this is all too much, like I wish I would, go down that route. And it's one of those things that once it's done, like it's done, and you leave people behind. It's something that shouldn't be going through people's heads, but yeah, life's hard.
When I see parents now who have lost their children, and I've been contacted by so many of those poor parents over the years, I feel, very emotional and incredibly angry that so many lives are being lost, which could have been prevented if we could have helped those young people in time.
When youth look towards their futures, when they look towards the society that awaits them, they're not seeing one that is suited towards their interests, that's going to allow them to feel like they have meaningful connections in communities, that is going to have them be engaged instead of a fulfilling life. There's just not a lot of sense that things are going to be leading towards a positive direction that's going to make them feel like they have a life that's worth living.
The rates of suicide and eating disorders are also increased, which is a problem because we don't have good resources, we don't have adequate resources for young people to seek help, and that is a problem because young people usually cannot afford to pay for private psychologists, psychiatrists or psychotherapists.
Limited funding, and that means limited time that clinicians have to spend with young people, and I feel like time is really key in healing young people and having that open, brave space, which there isn't enough of, for young people to voice their concerns and voice their worries.
We need more mental health literacy in schools. We need more mental health literacy in the community so that when people are struggling with issues to do with depression, to do with trauma, that they're able to get help.
Right now, because of the whole political situation back then, as well as the changes in the whole global society, including COVID-19. I think depression and anxiety, especially symptoms of depression and anxiety, are very common. The suicide rates are also very high in the recent years. There's also a growing number of different kinds of psychiatric conditions, but oftentimes they go quite underdiagnosed. So a lot of symptoms are being shown, but not a lot of people are really seeking help. So a lot of people might just talk about their experiences online with their friends, but nothing really gets solved right now.
Suicide rates are much more higher in Indigenous youth than non-Indigenous youth. Also, what I've heard from them is that they're sometimes in a constant struggle between two worlds, so what it is to be Indigenous, but also what it is to engage with a non-Indigenous world, and that brings a lot of questions in terms of identity. Who am I in the world? How do I engage with my community? And what if I have other interests of going out of my community and studying and traveling?
We're talking about 7 million people in Hong Kong, and about 15 to 20% of them would have had a diagnosable mental health conditions.
To young people from low to middle income countries, the inequity is a little bigger because they make up the largest portion of the population of youth globally, and they face the biggest burden when it comes to mental health. And they are aware that they're really going to make up the future population of the world.
There's a lot of data that actually is not captured in third world countries. So I think it's bigger than what is perhaps reported. A greater sense of urgency is needed because not just as a country or as a town or a city, as a world we have to respond to the mental health crisis that young people are facing today.
When the global pandemic hit, it was the rat race came to a screeching halt for not one person but the entire globe, and I think that impacted the mental health and well-being of every person on this earth.
The analogy is that coal miners used to bring canaries into a coal mine in a little cage, and if the canary fell off the perch, you knew there was some dangerous gases in the area because the canary was affected before the humans. So they're like an early warning system. And that's what, we now are pretty convinced that that's the case, that the deteriorating mental health of young people is an early warning system for the rest of us too. that the whole society is in deep trouble. And that means we need to look at the mega trends that are fragmenting and undermining the health of society.
The world has changed significantly in the last 80 years. If you went to 200 years ago to 80 years ago, there wasn't a lot of difference in the way that things happened. But the last 80 years has been massive change in just about every area of society. And we haven't really thought about what do we do to prepare people. So the mega trends that we see that are affecting young people's mental health are things like climate change and their worry about the future, social media and the impact, particularly the comparison that they have with each other, and that people's worries about academic success, and that flows on then into their worries about whether they have a job that will earn them enough money. Precariousness of work now, so people feeling that they won't have a job for life or be secure in that, and that's going to have all sorts of impacts on them in terms of what they're able to do going forward.
For parents, there's no playbook necessarily for how to deal with today's challenges for young people. That's the common experience when all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, a young person discloses particular issues that they're experiencing, or parents are noticing a change in behaviour, mood, diet, not going back to university or school issues. Whole range of things are emerging. It's really complex. So what we know is in order to help young people, a greater emphasis needs to be placed on the roles of parents, carers and the broader family as well.
In March of 2010, if you had asked us how we were doing as a family, I would have told you we were a happy, healthy and very fortunate family. But tragically, we got a call from a police officer who had to come to our house and let us know that we had lost our dear son, Jack. He was a first-year student at Queen's University, and tragically, Jack had been found in his residence room. He had died by suicide. So, of course, we were absolutely devastated. We were, a very close and happy family. Jack was extremely bright. School was never a challenge for him. But, when we went to his school after he passed, we found out that Jack was obviously really struggling. He hadn't been going to class for almost 4 months. He was isolating in his room. He was not socializing. But the students in the residence don around Jack didn't recognize those as signs and symptoms of struggle.
The very people that we need to be in good shape to keep society intact and progressing, we're neglecting in a very serious way. Going back to the 1990s, the World Bank realised that the most valuable person in the society is a 22-year-old. And that's because people have invested an enormous amount of effort and time, money and love and care getting that young person to the threshold of productive life. And if they develop a health problem which disables them or even prevents them from fulfilling their potential, you add that up across the whole society and it's a huge impact. And it's an impact that extends over decades. So, reduced potential, welfare payments, not paying tax, underachieving or dying, worst case scenario. In 2011, the World Economic Forum produced a major report. It showed that for lost economic output by disease type, mental illness was the #1 cause, twice as impactful as cancer and right up there with cardiovascular disease. And by 2030, it would likely account for 35% of the loss of GDP due to health causes. The shock of the Second World War forced governments to think about, these issues, and that's where the welfare state emerged in many parts of the world. So people were looked after, even if they were vulnerable or struggling. But that's, in the last 3 decades, has gone by the wayside. I mean, we've dismantled those welfare state systems. We've privatised them, so only some people can get access to these forms of education or healthcare. And we've seen the world become a much less kind and caring place. And I think we have to change that.
I feel just strange being here. I can feel it just tightening in my chest, and I'm shaking just a little bit because there wasn't a lot of happy memories being in high school, and it's just very overwhelming to be back here and to be putting myself in the shoes of my younger self and remembering just how much pain and suffering there was for me. I think for me it was accumulating from year 7, from when I was 13. The feelings were just building up and up and up, and my anxiety was increasing. I didn't have all that many friends, and the ones that I did have excluded me quite a lot. I was self-harming quite a lot. I didn't want to be around people, so at lunchtime I used to hang out in the bathrooms. I used to sit in class crying or napping. I remember this one time that I took a nap in my math class, and when I woke up, the teacher and all the students were gone, and there was another class in there. Somebody had started teaching another class while there's this one student just obviously not doing well. And there was a lot of incidents like that where it just seemed like nobody wanted to do anything. I was very, very clearly struggling. And I attempted suicide for the first time when I was 17. It was very scary for a child, really, to be in a psychiatric hospital. And school actually sent me flowers, which was very, very sweet. But, that doesn't, add up to all of the stuff that I ended up experiencing while I was there.
Teachers in high schools had been exposed to suicide deaths, quite often multiple suicide deaths. So the teachers, they know that in every classroom there's untreated mental health problems and a cloud of suicidal risk lurking in the classroom. And they know that, and they're very unsupported, the teachers. All the schools, they love buying into these well-being programs and resilience programs, but they don't actually do anything to help the kids that need, expert help.
Having someone like my dad, I was very lucky. Like, he was advocating for me from day one, and he was always there. He's just so passionate about trying to get, the right treatment to the right people.
Every week, I get phone calls from people all around Australia in the same predicament I was in when my son became unwell. How do I find the people and the team to help him get better? How do I get access? How do I make the team work, in the way that they should? Some of them are among the most well-connected people in Australia, but even they cannot find access, and it's quite extraordinary that they go through the normal hoops, these people, and they hit brick walls and dead ends and, in a way, needles in a haystack, and I help them navigate that, and we try to find the oasis in the desert.
It would be very difficult to live the way he does, and I can't fully express what I'm feeling in regard to that, because I don't ever get to feel like that. So I don't know what he's going through exactly.
I started experiencing mental health difficulties at 11, particularly depression at that age. I couldn't really identify where that was coming from. I just felt really off. I wasn't interested in anything. Started self-harming around the same age, and it was that way for a few years. And when I got to about 13, I realised that I was transgender. Once I was already feeling depressed, it was this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy of the post that popped up on my feed because of the way the algorithm is built. I was just being fed really dark, graphic imagery of self-harm and a lot of different quotes and things that really I shouldn't have been able to see at 11, 12, 13 years old. I don't want to paint social media as this like terrible thing either, because it was one of the things that absolutely saved my life on multiple occasions as well. Just through friends that I've made online that, like, if you're talking to someone in America, it's the middle of their day when it's 11 o'clock at night here. So it's a very different thing to just be having conversations and waiting until I'm so tired that I fall asleep instead of ruminating by myself in my own head.
I think the barriers mainly come from a lot of stigma still attached to mental health issues, especially with the online community being so open with talking about mental health, which is great, but it also comes with still a lot of issues about people criticizing people with mental health issues, people with depression or anxiety being seen as weak.
I think the number one job in moving forward is to break down the stigma and normalize these conversations. And I think that does actually start with youth, and it is a collective effort. It requires everyone to put in and to make an effort to change that.
Don't be afraid to speak about how you're feeling. It's okay to go through a mental health problem. Don't be in a bubble. Speak up, speak out.
You are beautiful as you are in ways that you don't yet know. And discovering all of those ways that you are beautiful is the greatest treasure that life has to offer.
It's going to be hard to deliver pure prevention. So in the meantime, we have to develop effective mental health care for this rising tide of people that need it. That is achievable, and we know exactly how to do that. We've tried to learn from the success of cancer research and treatment by, understanding the spectrum of what you have to do. So you have to understand the forces that create the illness in the first place, including the very harmful megatrends that have emerged over the last 20 years or so, which are largely increasing inequality and economic insecurity, particularly for young people, climate change, the impact of unregulated social media, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to understand that the risk factors, and there are lots of other known risk factors for mental illness, which are largely ignored. So cancer tackles risk factors. So it looks at diet, it looks at carcinogenic sort of risks, it looks at sunlight for skin cancer, and smoking, obviously, that's another one. So it tries to reduce the risk factors, it tries to increase the protective factors, and it prioritises early diagnosis and early treatment, and it has a staging model of care. So you have to work out what stage the cancer is at to know to what treatment should be prescribed. So we developed a staging model for mental illness arising out of our research in psychosis, because we were able to describe stage 1 psychosis, which was sub-threshold, a very early stage. And we've transformed the field of schizophrenia by our work in that space. And that led on to thinking, well, the treatment of every mental illness should be stage linked. You want to get to the very earliest stage when you can recognise the illness and then deploy the treatment at the earliest possible point where it's got the best chance of success. But also, you can use much safer treatments if you go earlier in the course of illness. You don't have to throw the kitchen sink at the thing and cause a lot of side effects because you're desperate to get a cure because the person is much more sick and much more seriously ill. So it's a pretty simple idea, and it's worked really well in cancer. And it's working really well in mental illness too. So that's what we've been trying to do, and that's been a very successful approach. What hasn't been successful is getting the kind of incredible funding that cancer research and cancer treatment get, and support from the public. I think if the public were denied treatment in the way people with mental illness were denied treatment, if they were denied that for cancer, the politicians wouldn't last 5 minutes. We know how to deploy the existing treatments more effectively, but the system of care is fragmented, underfunded, and not fit for purpose.
Mental health resources and provision is still very, very under-resourced. And that is a silent problem. The rest of medicine is very advanced, hospital very advanced, but mental health is particularly lagging behind.
We know there's a wave coming. We could see the wave coming. Let's stop the tsunami. And government is a part of this puzzle piece that needs to come along with us. And we've got the research evidence, we've got the youth, we've got the family. People want this. They want it now.
I can't help but think if this was any other crisis, if this was happening because, you know, of a road death toll or something, this would have been fixed years ago.
My kind of onset of symptoms started when I was around 12 to 13 years old. It started with things like low mood and self-harm, and some really unhealthy, like disordered eating habits around restriction and whatnot. I had around 100 inpatient admissions to the Royal Children's Hospital in a 2-year period. Part of me really wishes I could say, like, yep, it was this life event that happened and that just like triggered everything. But it never really felt that way for me. And I think like going through my care and everything, it was really hard to pinpoint. Like, loved school, did really well in school. I had lots of friends. I had lots of like hobbies and activities and lots of things that I enjoyed. But then there were like moments of different, I guess, breakdowns that you could call it. So my family went through a really difficult time. My parents ended up separating. I had been reporting having really like chronic like pain and health issues for so long that we couldn't find answers to. For some reason, in the way that my brain was made up, the way I responded to these like stresses and life events and just life in general, ended up resulting in quite like chronic and complex mental health. We're all out there looking for this big like whodunit, like we want to point the finger at this big thing. And I think we need to get comfortable accepting that like sometimes people have really normal, healthy lives where everything is going to plan and they can still experience mental illness and still experience mental health struggles. And that's a really big part of breaking the stigma. Something doesn't have to have happened to someone in order for them to suffer.
During adolescence, there are essentially two major brain processes that are going on that develop the brain from being the brain of a child to being the brain of an adult. And the first one is a change in sort of the functioning of the brain, how rewards are processed, what kind of social groups you want to spend time with. It seems to be more under the control of hormones. Certainly, it starts with puberty, so we assume that hormones have something to do with it, although we don't really know exactly how. But it ends up meaning that you have a teenage brain that generally is a bit more emotional. You have more high emotions and more low emotions, so it's not just being more grumpy, but being just generally having more range in your emotional behaviour. Now, at the same time, the brain is going through a slow process of developing the ability to control behaviours. It's part of the brain, the prefrontal lobe, that is quite slow, quite late to reach maturity. And it's the part of the brain that lets you take a step back, that lets you say, oh, maybe I don't want to do this, or maybe I should think about this again. And it just takes time. It's not something that's under hormonal control. It's just something that happens chronologically as you age. So it means that the brain of an adolescent is in this period where they've kind of developed this drive and this ability to get really passionate about things, to get really angry about things, that wants to spend less time talking to parents and teachers and more time talking with their peer group, but doesn't yet have adult levels of being able to control their choices and behaviour. And that mismatch is what maybe leaves people more vulnerable to developing mental illnesses in this period. As a parent, the key things to try to remember is that you want to remain engaged. If you are constantly poo-pooing their music choices or telling them that things that they're interested in are no good, then you will lose that sense of connection with them. You've got to find areas of common enjoyment. You want your young person to have a feeling that there are things that they're good at, where they feel like they have skill, that they're good at something, it's an area that they can be passionate about. And that might be doing art, it might be skateboarding. It's great if it's something where there is other peer involvement because they really enjoy that peer engagement.
In the age of adolescence, young people are asking the biggest questions about life. They're asking existential questions. They're asking questions about identity, about their place in the world, about how they want to see the world that they want to live in. And so when that young person is supported through that journey of asking those questions, then we're really talking about a very different adult life.
I'd really encourage parents to do this. Continue to have a good and clear relationship with their children, to talk to them realistically. to look at the things that they can do in terms of connecting them to help where that's necessary, finding out whether it is necessary, not ignoring things that are going on, but also talking to young people about their capacity to influence their own destiny. Their agency to carry them through those challenges is really important. If we can help our children discover that, we'll be giving them some armour to protect them from the battles that they're going to have to fight.
In the whole of healthcare, mental illness, especially in young people, and because it starts and impacts young people and people in the prime of life, it's an absolutely greenfield site for huge progress, making the world a better place and making societies stronger and more prosperous and productive. And yet, governments want to prioritise patterns of illness that affect much older people as the main priority in healthcare. I'm not saying don't invest in other health areas, but the neglect of this area is just an appalling mistake and insult to people with a major set of health problems. All the time, with a 50% rise in prevalence, we know they're struggling to get the right type of care. There's this term moral injury where you're forced to turn people away when you can't really help them. So it's kind of urgent, isn't it?
The system is so flooded and the model is going backwards in terms of its funding and accessibility.
It's about knowing they can turn up anywhere, that there is a pathway in to getting the right help wherever they arrive, that looks like a 24-hour, 7-day option. You don't have to know the name of the service, you don't have to know the type of the team, you don't have to know anything about the system, because the system will work that out and we will be responsive to you walking in that door. And then what we're trying to do, and we're really clear this will make a difference, is that we want continuity. So when you walk in, you're not moving from one team to another. You don't have to repeat your story over and over again. You don't have to, as the young person and family, teach the person that's providing care for you. You don't have to teach them about what has to happen for you. That we have to wrap around you.
I think what needs to change is that we need continuity of care and a consistent approach with persistent distress. So I have severe and enduring mental illness, and each time I had a new clinician looking after me, it'd be a completely different kind of approach. And I needed somebody to stay with me the whole time that was consistent to respond to the distress that I was going through.
We know that people are going to come to us in crisis. We know that they're going to work with us for a period of time, but we don't have any cutoffs. Once they feel like they're good to go on their own, then they drift out of the system. However, we also know that when things get tough again, they know that they can come back into the system.
Mental health is a lifelong experience. It's your mind and managing your mind, and just like managing your body's health, it's something that you go through from birth all the way until you leave this world.
That's why I think the staging model is not only like an incredible concept, but a life-saving concept, and it enables people to live the lives that they want to live, knowing that that support, that safety net is always there to fall back on.
Here we are in Ireland. Ireland and Australia have been among the really pioneering countries trying to get this issue addressed. Involving young people in designing these models of care, doing medical research. We need massive public support, and that will translate into political action.
Patrick McGrory is an Irish-born Australian psychiatrist known worldwide for his mental health innovation, as well as his advocacy for and reform of services for young people. In 2010, he was elected as Australian of the Year as an Officer of the Order of Australia.
In the name and by the authority of the Royal Irish Academy, I admit you a member thereof.
I
I think it would have been really easy for him to sit back and treat people as a clinician, but he saw this as too great a crisis to not maybe stick his head above the parapet. And he's sometimes been really, really busy, really exhausted, and I've seen it take a really big personal toll on him. But I think it's really admirable what he's doing with his life.
It's a huge honour. Obviously, it tends to be a personal honour because I'm the one getting it, but really representing a whole army of people around the world that have contributed to the youth mental health field. A lot of people around the world are doing good things, and we have connected up with like-minded people with the same sort of mission, having compassionate, effective mental health care for every young person that needs it, and support for their families.
One of the things that we looked at was that we wanted to make a definite decision that we were looking for better mental health outcomes. Not just we were just going to be here for 5 years and how we do that, but the way we looked at it then was looking at an external goal in terms of for young people and how we capture some of the issues we do externally. So services, promotion, advocacy.
Yeah, that's good.
But in order to do that, then we needed to develop the organisation internally. What's really helped, though, is people can understand that one goal faces out, one goal faces in, but it's all based on the values. When you really, really listen to them, they're open about their mental health. They're much more open in terms of seeking help and seeking support. While they have all the fragilities that everybody has going through adolescence, they're more open to seeking that support, to receiving it, but also trying to do something about it, something about the system that is failing them or failing their peers, and realising that they do need to make change for the future.
We're all about peer-to-peer education. Young people don't want to listen to a 60-year-old, 62-year-old man like me. They want to learn from their peers who have gone through this, and that really has the effect of reducing stigma and increasing help seeking. You need to learn how to share those conversations with your family members, but especially with the young people. And I often use the example that we came across early on. We call it the roses and thorns. You need to share your struggles with the young people in your life, as well as the things that went well.
I think as parents, we learn all the time, and it's different today for young people growing up in today's world than it was when parents themselves were growing up in their earlier formative years. From an Australian point of view, we're really committed to the path that we're on. We're open to learning a lot more, and we learn each day. And why? Because we get active feedback from young people and from communities about what it is that we need to do to best support young people, particularly when they're experiencing a tough time.
Young people want to be taken seriously. Young people need to be taken seriously. I know that for myself, I haven't been listened to a lot of the time in my life, and my opinions matter.
We can't be quiet about this, and you deserve better, and we all deserve better. Just be loud, make sure that your voice is being heard.
We have one saying that on the young people, world stays. And if the world stays on me, on my shoulders, then I need to be heard. Like you have to recognize me as a person that you want to involve in solving the problems that are about me.
Even though the progress might not be happening fast enough, it might not be, at the breadth that we would like, but it is happening. And young people are part of that. And it's not that they're invited to be part of it, it's that they are demanding to create space for themselves to be in that space.
Every person you talk to, every family, every young person knows this is a reality. In fact, all the politicians know it's a reality, but it hasn't been forced into the public debate and discourse in an aggressive and political way.
I think that a lot of governments feel that mental health issues are too big of an issue to tackle. But there is a saying, how do you eat an elephant? one bite at a time.
We don't always have the answers, and it's okay to not have answers, but what we really need, especially right now, is the courage to just do something.
Politicians and stakeholders are at times a little bit scared to be the leading change for fear of getting it wrong or not. I don't necessarily know, but I think they just need to be a little bit brave, step up and really take the lead on these things and go, yes, we are going to provide that funding, and yes, we are going to do these things, and we are going to make this change.
If we just do things the way we've been going with little pieces of progress, small steps, band-aids, evolutionary reform, that is not going to work. We'll continue to see preventable deaths from suicide in young people, the number one killer of young people. We'll see premature deaths because if you have a significant mental illness that isn't properly treated in youth, you'll end up dying 15 years earlier than everybody else from physical health complications. We'll see financially weaker societies. We'll see less cohesive societies, and the world will be a much less pleasant place to live in, and maybe not a viable place to live in.
Now, I call it one of the two global challenges, climate change and youth mental health. You know, the future of our countries is with our youth, and if we can support them, that will have a payback to our economy by them thriving and, you know, being in good jobs and really just making the world a better place.
It's not next year, it's not the year after. We're talking a 20 to 30 year process that we have to all commit to. And it's not just about service delivery, it's looking at the causal factors, the impacts of social media, globalisation, climate change, whole range of factors that are weighing down on the mental health and well-being of young people.
Good morning.
We need a revolution here. We need to reconceptualise, reimagine youth mental health care. That's the title of this conference, reimagining it. So power to the revolution. Use the word revolution, which freaks a few people out because, you know, for obvious reasons, but we need things to be very different. It doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater with the treatments and advances we have made, but we have to think very differently and on a different scale and scope of what's needed. And we have to think about prevention as well, but we have to make sure that we have equity in healthcare for young people for their main health problem, because currently it's inequitable, it's discriminatory. To build mental wealth, what we need is funding to promote mental health and well-being. We need to fund early intervention programs. We need to deliver high-quality treatment for young people for as long as they need that kind of treatment.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for the future of young people, people with lived experience.
I'm optimistic that the kids that we see in this generation, they are brave and they are strong and they are smart. And so all of these challenges that they're facing are not challenges that are going to be insurmountable for them.
I think it's always just important to hold on to that fundamental principle of hope and to always know that things can get better, you know, even if that takes a day or a year or however long.
I'd like to inspire my peers and all the young people from my country to come and join us and take action in changing whatever they need to change. If there is a problem, we can do it together.
You're put on this earth because you're strong enough to live it, and I know you've got that strength inside you, and I hear your distress, I hear your pain, but things will get better, and you have a voice and you have a choice.
Your life is so worth it, and it's really cheesy to say, but it does actually get better, and there's a whole world full of us lived experience people here to cheer you on when you're coming out of the other side. I've been through some really tough stuff and I'm still here. I didn't expect to make it to 25, and it's a blessing, it's a privilege to be here. And I think that when you're in it, it feels like that's everything, but there's support out there.
I just hope that I can do the best that I can as a father. I hope that I could be half the father that he was to me. I was just conveying my appreciation to everything that you've put up with over the years.
Well, we all put up with each other.
Yeah. You have that perspective now, but there were some dark times.
What we need is the groundswell of the revolutionary support of the public to achieve this mission. Ideology will take you so far. Scientific merit will take you so far. But when people start to worry about their kids and even their own futures even more, then that's the only time when you're going to see the revolution. It needs a revolution. It needs a complete rethink about how we're spending health dollars, how we're spending research dollars. But that will only occur once the general public realises that their own lives and happiness are on the line here.
Join the revolution to help young people.
It's a revolution. Help young people.
Join the revolution!
I think we need to flip the script and start telling governments, we know what needs to be invested. We've listened to young people. We've listened to their families. We're doing the research. If you're worried about getting elected, listen to us. We'll get you elected again. You implement the things that we're recommending, and it's a no-brainer.
Do we want a world where everyone's out for themselves, everyone's individualistic and selfish, and business is just purely about profit? Or do we want a world where we're looking after each other and we're caring about each other?
Can I hug you? I want to hug you.
Like,
you know, you can do this with your hand.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a revolution.